Obviously a tough game tonight. Looking to kind of get back on the wagon after a tough weekend, and thought we did some things okay. I thought Cade gave us a decent start. I thought Jansen Kenty threw the ball okay. I thought Buchanan threw the ball okay. AD was great there at the end. We did a couple good things there. We had 4 2-out RBIs there in the third, which is great. But we just weren't good enough, and that's what I really challenged our team after the game is man, I think we just have a decision to make as we move forward. We've done some really, really great things up to this point. We've also done some things really inconsistently up to this point, and the test of a really good team and a gritty team is one that can respond when things aren't going well, and we'll have a heck of an opportunity to do that on Friday night. In baseball, man, they don't care how you're feeling. They don't care good, bad, or indifferent. I can assure you Arkansas is not. They're licking their chops to come to Tuscaloosa. I can promise you that right now. And it's our job to respond to that. And it's our job to come out and prepare these next 2 days to come take on the number 1 team in the country and play one game at a time. And I think it's so easy in this game to get wrapped up in all the other stuff, to get wrapped up in your ranking, to get wrapped up in postseason stuff, to get wrapped up in all the stuff that at the end of the day takes care of itself. You approach each day mature, and we just again weren't good enough tonight. So unfortunate, because I felt like we were in a good spot to come out and have a good day. You hang that 4 spot there in the third, you feel like that was maybe what we needed to push through and kind of get boys going again, and we just could not string together consistent at bats, and then obviously gave it up there late. So yeah, challenge them to say like, hey, who are we? What are we made of? And if we're not made of the stuff I think we're made of, then it could be a really rough next month and a half. But I think these kids will ring the bell. They're good kids. They're mature kids. They want to win. We just got to make that adjustment and start preparing tomorrow for a really good team coming in on Friday.
Yeah, Coach. Your offense was a little better tonight than it was, over the weekend in Lexington. What did you kind of see in the difference from over the weekend to tonight offensively at the plate?
Yeah, I think Kentucky, I didn't really know what to expect going in there. I didn't know. I knew they had some gadget stuff, a lot of fake bunt stuff. But what I watched from that team that we can learn from as a group is, man, that group was 40 deep, and they were into every single pitch, every single one of them. And their starting pitching was elite. Really good arms, tons of strikes, no freebies, did some really good things against us. And it seemed like when we hit a ball hard this weekend, it was an out, and when we didn't hit a ball this weekend, it was an out. I think it can kind of throw you in a little bit of a funk there. Being a hitter, it's a lot like a golfer. It can be a lonely place in that batter's box when you feel lost a little bit, and when you start questioning a little bit. And I thought all 3 games this weekend, and I thought tonight, I thought our at-bats the first 3 innings were awesome. Even against Kentucky, I thought our at-bats the first 3 innings were really good. We were on the barrel with stuff. We were taking good swings. And then the 4th through about the 7th, there's this little bit of a lull and I felt that tonight. We scored 4, and it was like, oh, okay, we're good. And instead of that kind of being the thing that kicked the door down, it let us kind of sit back and think, hey, we got a 4-0 lead. We're in a good place here. And all of a sudden they start crawling back in it, and then punch that 3 spot there in the 8th. And we turned it back on with some aggression in the dugout, some intensity. But it's against 2 of their dudes there at the end of the game. If you have that same intensity all the way through, I feel like we may have a chance to pull away there in the middle, and that 3 spot in the 8th doesn't hurt near as bad. So that's the maturity, but that's who we got to be. That's who we're gonna be. We are going to get there. For this group, I would just like to happen sooner rather than later for these kids.
Yeah, and you moved Evan Slight from batting 4th to batting 7th. He had a couple nice hits today. So what do you kind of see from him in that adjustment?
Yeah, just trying to take a little bit of pressure off Ev. He's had really good at bats at times, and he had some really good at bats this weekend too, just with not a lot to show for it. But we just thought, Will Hoder had been having great ABs and kind of liked him there in that 4 spot. And I thought Will had pretty good at bats tonight. I don't know. We ended up, what was he, 1 for 4 tonight, but had some decent at bats tonight. And just take a little pressure off Ev. Let him just go settle in and just worry about running to get a AB off. He ran 2 good ones off for us tonight, got hit by a pitch. Unfortunately, the big third at bat wasn't quite able to get it done, but just try to take a little bit of pressure off Ev and slide him down a little bit.
Yeah, you guys are going into coming into tonight, you were going into a nine-game homestand. You've got 8 more to go here before you go on the road again. How important is it just to kind of get back to where you want this team to be to get some big games out of this homestand so far?
Yeah, I mean, you're playing the number 1 team in the country. Like, that's never an easy task. But if you're going to play them, it's a heck of a lot more comfortable to play them at home. You know how the ball bounces. You've got the crowd behind you. You'd much rather have those guys at home. So, especially when you kind of have this funk of a 4-game spell where I don't think we played great baseball, and it really kind of goes to the midweek before. Really, against Sanford, I thought we did some awesome things until about the 7th or 8th inning in that game, and Sanford crawled back in it and had the winning run on base. Fortunately, we were able to get out of it. But I think, as you're working through this thing, when you're at home, you have 2 good days to prepare, and I think that's the thing that gets lost in this. I know we're gonna have some weather at least tomorrow, but practice is so few and far in between in the season, because you're playing on Tuesday, then you're traveling, and it's this, that. When you do play at home, you do have 2 days here, Wednesday and Thursday, to get back to work. Some things that we talked about offensively that I don't want to say we've gotten away from, but we just lost sight of a little bit, that we need to kind of hone back in, and we've got 2 good days to work on that before they get to town.
Yeah, and this team has struggled on the road, but Alabama's just one of multiple SEC teams who've kind of struggled on the road. You've talked about how difficult it is to win SEC road games, but as from a coach's perspective, why do you think it's been so difficult for multiple SEC teams to be struggling on the road like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think anytime you have a crowd, and very frankly, the 2 road teams we've had and this is not a knock on them at all, but it wasn't raucous crowds that we faced. Georgia was fine, Kentucky was fine, but we're getting ready to go to Ole Miss, and they're going to be nuts down there. After that, we go to Mississippi State here in a couple weeks. It's going to be 10,000 deep of raucous crowds. But I think the biggest thing is everybody's just more comfortable at home. These kids are sleeping in their bed. They're not traveling. It's where you show up every day to work. There's just a comfortability from being at home. And I think we played a Georgia team that is competitive and was playing good, and felt like we maybe let a game or 2 get away there. This weekend, I thought we just got beat 3 games by a really good team. And I thought Kentucky pitched the ball better than we did. I thought they were more competitive in the box than we were, and I thought they played better defense than we did. We just got beaten all 3 phases by a really good team on the road this weekend. But I think that's what you see. I think there's comfortability at home. I think crowd does matter, and that's why. That's my big thing. Our crowds this year have been awesome here, and they matter, and they make a difference. And I think that's the biggest thing. Man, stick with these boys. I'm telling you, they're going to come out. They're going to if you're going to have this scuffle. I talked to Nate Oates for a little while on the phone this morning. Me and Nate talked, and we were talking about some different things, and he said the same thing. He's like, Rob, we had that stretch in the middle. We had those 3 games we lost to good teams in a row. We lost 4 of our last 6. It wasn't going great going into the tournament, and the boys rallied. And I believe in these kids. I think they're made of the right stuff. I think they got to get back to remembering who they are. They got to get back to understanding what it means to put this on and what it stands for. And we need the fans to stick with them, because those guys make a difference. And I tell you what, we're going to need every ounce of them this weekend.
Yeah, you just talked about it a little bit with the crowd and how good they've been for some of these big series. But it's a huge weekend with, A-Day falling on Saturday too. What would be kind of the message to maybe fans coming in for A-Day for the weekend, maybe kind of on the fence about possibly coming to the Joe? What would you kind of have to say to them to try to get them to come and help out the team?
Yeah, we probably certainly didn't help our case by not getting it done tonight. But man, college baseball's special. It's such an unbelievable game, when you look at, I've been in my first football game here that I really felt it. I got to be here for Texas, and we didn't end up on the right side of that thing, but my goodness, when you're 100,000 deep in Bryant-Denny, there ain't nothing better than that, and they matter here. And man, these kids pour so much into this thing, and it's so easy, I think, as a fan. It's easy as a coach. I think the further I get away from playing, the easier the game becomes. I'll get in the box and hit sometimes just to remind myself how hard it is to actually get in there and hit a baseball, how hard it is to get up and execute a 2-2 slider. It's not easy, but that's what we're preparing these guys to do. And my message to them would be, man, stick with these kids. It's going to be a great weekend. We should have good energy. They got a chance to see, man, we got one of the number 1 pitcher in the country, and coming in and throwing on Friday night, that guy's going to make a lot of money here in a couple months. And man, it's a heck of a lot of fun, to try to go slay a giant together. And that's what these guys have an opportunity to do. man, that's what's wild. It turns on a dime with young kids, and man, if they can show up, they matter. They can help us get through this series this weekend, and man, go see what Coach DeBoer is doing over there, and see what football's got cooking, and shoot over the game, and watch our boys compete a little bit. And sounds like a heck of a weekend in Tuscaloosa to me.
Yeah, Coach, how do you, with the lineup struggling lately, and you just said going against Hagen Smith on Friday, how do you kind of motivate them and get them confident going against a perennial ace like that?
Yeah, I think number one, if I have to motivate them, we got bigger problems, right? Like if I've got to try to get them excited about facing this guy, we have much bigger problems. At the end of the day, that's what the pack offense is all about. Like when buffaloes hunt, that's what they do. If a wolf goes up, or I'm sorry, wolves hunt. If a wolf goes up against a buffalo one-on-one, it's going to get knocked off its feet and taken care of every single time. And if we try to attack Hagen Smith on Friday the way that we have maybe these last 4 games, it ain't going to go good. He's going to have some fun with our guys if we do that. But collectively, like the way wolves hunt is they surround the buffalo. One grabs one leg, one grabs the other, one jumps on his back, and finally one guy jumps up and grabs him by the throat and brings him down. That's how they hunt. That's how they survive. That's how they eat. That's how our offense has to work. Our offense hasn't worked like that for the last 4 games. It has at times this year. It's been outstanding doing that at times this year. But if you're going to take down a giant, that's how you have to do it. Because if you try to go one-on-one and it's going to be, man, Gage Miller versus like, that ain't how it works. It's going to take gritty, understanding somebody's going to wear an 0 for 4 in there with 4 punches. I'm promising you that's coming. It's going to happen to somebody. But man, it's a hit by pitch. It's a dirt ball read. It's a sack fly. It's executing a bunt. It's being willing to take your walks, being willing to run that off. And collectively, doesn't guarantee you success, but it gives you a fighting chance. That's what I want to see from these guys, and that's what they're capable of doing. That's what we've done a lot in the past. We've had success. We've gotten away from that for 4 games, and we're going to work really hard these next 48 hours to kind of get back to that and get back to who we are and prepare for a heck of a fight on Friday night.
Coach, you talked in the beginning of the season about when you get into that SEC play and you get into the adversity and you hit a rough spot, that the mentality of the kids in the back in that locker room are going to be tested, and you want to see what the makeup is. We've sort of reached that point in the season, right? What does it look like from your perspective, trying to see what that looks like from them? How do you go about that as a coach?
Yeah, number one, I think you acknowledge it. That's the first thing I told them in that thing right there. I said, all right, boys, like we got a decision to make, right? Like we can suck our thumb. We can say, here we go again. We can say, Alabama can't play with Arkansas. Alabama can't play with A&M. Like we're just not there. Our players aren't good enough. Our pitchers aren't good enough. Our hitters aren't good. And if we do that, that's going to tell us a lot about this team. You know, I don't think those kids think that way. I really don't. I think that's a locker room full of 40 dudes that have put a lot into this thing, that work their tails off. But working hard is just the price of admission, right? Like you don't get some trophy because you work hard, because everybody in this game works hard. I want to see Coach Price, our strength coach, was talking to me the other day. He's like, I just want it to feel right. You can lose a game and it feels right, and you're like, man, they fought like crazy. We just came up in the short end of the stick, and we've done that a couple times this year where maybe we've ended up on the other side of it, but man, we fought, we scratched, we clawed. It was right. We just got beat. Like that's happened a couple times. And I don't think that was the case tonight. I didn't feel that tonight. You know, and that's not taking anything away from South Al. Coach Calvi does such a good job, man. Those kids are tough. Some really good players there at the top of that lineup. Some of those arms they brought in late had electric stuff. So that's not taking away from them whatsoever. But I think the reality is like tonight didn't feel right. Tonight didn't feel like a hungry group of dudes that are fighting their way up the mountain. It felt like kind of the wounded puppy that was kind of trying to pull itself up off the mat. And so that's what I want to see. And I told our guys that after the game, I said, man, we're going to coach you. That's our job. We're going to coach them hard. Alabama baseball, and I don't know when it's going to happen. I hope it happens real soon. But I can promise you guys, there's not going to be a tougher, grittier group of guys in this league at some point. I hope it's this year, because I think there's guys in the locker room that care. But that's what we're going to build. Every team I've ever coached that's had success, that's been the MO. It hasn't been star power. It hasn't been all this cool stuff. It's been tough, mean, gritty kids. And I think we got enough of those guys in that locker room that can ring the bell on that. But I can tell you, shoot, You heard Dan Hurley say that, right? And he obviously just won the national championship last night. First year at UConn, they missed the NCAA tournament for the third straight year, his first year. And his comment was, "You better get us now." And that's what it is here, man. Like, we're gonna get there, and I think this group in that locker room is capable of doing that. But we're gonna continue to coach them. We're gonna continue to push them. We're gonna continue to prepare them. We're gonna continue to love them. I think that's really important through this. It's so easy to sit up here and turn it into, man, like us versus the players, or I'm gonna turn into. I was a Mighty Ducks fan growing up, when Gordon Bombay flips and turns into Captain Blood there for a couple weeks. I don't play. Like, we are who we are. We're gonna coach them hard. We're gonna love them really hard, and together we're gonna get through this on the other side. And whether the season turns and we start rattling off awesome games this weekend or not, I don't know. Like, but I can tell you that this group is gonna do some fun things, and Alabama baseball is going to get to the point where, man, we might lose, but you're gonna have to put your chin strap on, because we're gonna scratch and claw for everything. And we've done that at times. We just kind of got put on our back. We got knocked on the map. And now I'm excited to see how that group and their response, I think they're going to, and how they can pull themselves up, how they can stick together, and man, it's just part of the story. And it's not the fun part. It ain't the fun part of the story. We all like coming in, and man, we started the year off crazy. We weren't ever losing. It's like, oh, we're never gonna lose again. Your culture matters now. This is when culture matters. Culture doesn't matter when you're steamrolling people. Culture matters when you do get punched in the mouth. We can't claim to be about culture and toughness and grit and ownership if, first off, as coaches, if we don't live that. And then number two, if that's not embodied by those players in that locker room. So, man, you're going to get us now, because we're coming. We're going to keep scratching and clawing to make this thing right. And I think that there's enough dudes in that locker room that I think we're going to look up here in a couple weeks and say, man, thank goodness for those 4 games. And that sounds crazy, but thank goodness for those, because we're not who we are without those 4 games.
Anything else? All right.
Thanks, guys. Roll.